I'm James Shippey, breaking news anchor for KOIN 6 in Portland, CW. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited about our next guest. His name is Arshay Cooper. He was the captain of the first all-African American high school rowing team. He's an author, a motivator. His latest book, Let Me Be Real With You, is out in stores now, Amazon audiobook. And we're going to be talking about all the contents of that book, where he goes from growing up on the west side of Chicago to motivating people around the world. Enjoy. It's a real pleasure to have you because I know you got a new book coming out, so we're going to be talking about that and just your life story. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, James. I'm doing great. I'm right outside New York in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and it's a beautiful day. So, I'm ready to go.
Nice, nice. So how's the weather? I mean, here we're starting to just get a little cool here in the Pacific Northwest, but we're still getting a little bit of those summer temperatures. Is it starting to get cooler there yet?
I mean, it's like 70 every day, which is perfect. That those fall leaves are starting to change color. So it's honestly, it's perfect. It was a hot summer. So right now it's perfect.
Nice, nice. Yeah, look, I lived in New York for a couple of years, so I know it's very hot and humid summers. I grew up in Houston, so I was used to it. So until I moved to LA, then I figured out what hot and humid weather is. So definitely. But yes, Arshay, I want to talk to you about your book and your background. Like your biggest thing is that, and a lot of folks may not know this, or some may, but you were basically the captain of the first like all African American rowing high school team in the country. Can you just let us know just quickly a little bit about that and how that's kind of set you on the path that you're on now as far as becoming an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and just kind of going around really the world and spreading this message of triumph and just kind of bootstrap mentality to do better in life?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up on the west side of Chicago. In high school in the 90s, I was at a public school, Manley High School. At that time, that school graduated less than 60% of his senior class every year. And maybe sent 10% of his senior class to college every year. The school was a neglected school, so I didn't see many new books, but we there were kids from different gangs, and we were all in the school every single day. And if you didn't play basketball or football, there was no other sports outside of the cheap ball sports. And I remember one day walking in the lunchroom, I saw a white boat in there, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And I looked at this TV monitor, and behind this boat, they were showing the Olympic Games. And when I saw these guys moving this boat, it was so magical. The rhythm, the pace, the way they were breathing. But honestly, I looked at the screen and said, "Well, no one looks like me. I don't know anything about this world." And I walked away. And then the next day, I came back and he was giving out free pizza, and I was like, I joined for the pizza, and so I joined this team, and it was the first all-black high school rowing team. And I think there's so many meaningful things about rowing, like the opportunity to row in college, the social wellness, being around people who are pulling for you, who are traveling with you. But the biggest thing for me was going from seeing dirt and concrete every day to water and grass, and being a part of a sport that's non-combative and non-conflict, and just a ton of rhythm, a ton of magic, a ton of wellness and greenery. Like that was the one thing that changed me and my teammates' life.
Yeah, and I think that's an awesome thing. And, being here, I'm new to the Pacific Northwest, but out here, nature is like a big deal, right? And I just remember, reading your story and seeing what that does for people, right? It can put you in a meditative state. And especially if you grow up like in the inner city, a lot of kids aren't exposed to that. And I thought that was pretty remarkable that you had that exposure early. Some folks never get that. So how big of a deal did that play for you? Because I think that's very relative to people out here, why people love growing up in a place like this as well, and what that can do, especially for kids from the inner city.
I mean, it does so much for you. A lot of kids, especially on the west side of Chicago, that live 6 miles away from downtown, where the water is, where you see a lot of beautiful trees. You see it from a distance, but you just don't get there. And everyone's dream is to get there, but there's different reasons why they don't. But for me specifically, it was, a combination of the water and grass, but like the sport, meaning that when you're a part of something and you're spending 2 hours a day being asked to sit tall, to learn how to breathe, learn how to concentrate. You don't hear police sirens. You don't hear, the sounds of ambulance or gunshots. You can just you hear the sound of birds, singing basically and harmonizing. That was something different for us, and so that nature is an amazing thing. And then the water represents peace. If it's raining, if you're taking a shower, if you're just sitting in the boat, if you're just sitting near Lake Michigan and watching, the boats go by, that does something to you emotionally, right? It puts you in a calm mood. And so being around that every single day changed our mindset. And so that was just a powerful thing to see this environmental wellness not happening to us, but kind of through us, and it put us in the right mindset. So when we go back home, like we're bringing kind of that peace and that calmness back to our community.
Yes, and it's funny you mentioned that because you talk about people coming from, even though you all may have been from their city, you're coming from these different factions. And I remember you spoke about sometimes finding that common ground, which is, sports and extracurricular activities. That always finds a way to do that for people. But you would meet people that maybe you guys maybe weren't seeing eye to eye, or you may have had these different thoughts about each other, didn't know one another, which I think is a very universal thing, because a lot of times people don't know each other, especially like in the climate we live in now. So you can make your assumptions about other folks and, what they've been through. Can you just say quickly a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that the one thing about rowing, that's different from other sports is when you in your neighborhood or in your city, your community, school, if you're playing basketball, football, you're practicing in that neighborhood. You're playing your games in that district, right? And then you have city championships. With rowing, it was more nationals, right? That's the goal. And then with rowing, there's usually one body of water in each city where people go and row. And so you're kind of taken out of all the surroundings, and the things that is happening in those surroundings, like watching your back, or you got to protect yourself, or this person's coming after you. And you kind of just step away from that with all these other guys who are thinking the same from different neighborhoods. And you in a community now where literally it was just us. Like the only people of color that were there was us, right? And we kind of first looked at each other and said, wow, like, we got to look out for each other. We got to pull for each other, And I think that helped us to build that connection. And then we shared a boathouse with 4 private schools. And then we shared in the same locker room, the same water fountain, some of the same boats, and some of the same oars. And they're cracking the same jokes. They love pizza. And we learned that we are all more alike than we are unalike. I mean, we come from different places. And so rowing kind of helped us connect. And we all understood, like, hey, we in this sport where you got to work hard, you got to learn how to swim, you got to pull for each other, you got to kind of travel to the same regattas, and then that kind of helped everyone connect. We built one big family, and the boathouse became the lighthouse of the community for all of us.
See, that's awesome. Yeah, and I saw that in this book. That was really inspiring. Because, like I say, you see this stuff about rowing, and I'll be honest, never thought about rowing. I think I see it on the Olympics. You see it on TV, and you said, okay, that looks fun for them. But, I never, you just never, doesn't cross your mind or even about the access to it. So kind of seeing this premise of what it did for you growing up, because your life story is also a lot about resilience, especially like growing up with your background, what you had to deal with, even like the something that people might take for granted, like just you getting to school in the morning, what you had to get through, kind of the dangers and the surroundings that you had to get through that. Your book, your life story is about resilience. Can you think of is there anything in particular that really was like a resilient moment for you, whether it's the rowing or something near that time frame before or after that changed for you? Because your story really is about all this resilience at such an early point in your life. And sometimes people don't experience that or have that self-awareness so early and can like make a great change for themselves.
Yeah, I'll say it's two things that come to mind right away. The first thing is that when you're part of a sport, decided to join a sport or a sport that you're just not used to, it comes with these amazing people who have learned a lot of lessons from the sport. And so, what connected with me and especially my teammates is that they would bring in these motivational speakers, people to just inspire you before the game, get you ready for the race. And I remember one day this guy pulling out a handful of money and saying to everyone, "Who wants this?" And everyone was screaming, "I want it!" And I didn't know how much money it was. I just knew I wanted it, right? And he said, "Come on, who wants it?" And everyone's screaming, "I want it! I want it!" And I'm thinking, okay, if I get this money, I'm not gonna buy ice cream. I'm not gonna buy a video game, but I'm gonna take it home to my grandmother so I can eat that night. And so I stood up and I was screaming, and I just felt like he was gonna give it to me. I was like, I know he's gonna give it to me. He see how bad I want it. And I see this kid run up from the side of the classroom. And he took the money out of the guy's hand, and the guy told him, "It's yours." And what the guy said to us that was so important, he said, when you want something, like you want to be an Olympian, you want to be the captain of your team, you want to go to college, you want justice for your community, you want to be a professional athlete, you just can't scream about it. You can't just shout about it. You can't just yell you want it. You can't just tell your friends. But if you want something, you have to get up and go get it. You have to put in the work. But if you don't, someone else is going to take that college spot. Someone's going to take that captain spot. And for me, like those lessons we were getting every day from those who have seen what we yet haven't seen, who those who studied the course that we're learning to study, really put us in a position to be resilient and to be the people that we wanted to be. And the next step after that was like, hey, just do the simple things that's going to get you to where I'm at. Learn how to swim. Do it afraid, right? Show up every day to the boathouse. Meet people who look like you and don't look like you. Interact with them. Learn about them, right? Write about what you are experiencing. Do poetry. You can draw it. You can talk about it. You can share about it. You can do it in your storytelling. Like it was those things every day that helped us to become the resilient people we were.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, Arshay, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, because one of the main reasons you're here is you've got a new book coming out, Let Me Be Real With You. Full disclosure, I have some experience with this because I'm a narrator, a voiceover actor, and I had the pleasure and the opportunity to voice this project. And just being able to have you on today, would love for folks to hear about it, and we can talk more about it on the other side of the break.
I was speaking at a conference. It was a rowing conference with all these amazing coaches, and they had a lot of coaches speaking on how to work with young people and ways to show them more love and teaching them time management or perfect their stroke and rowing. And through a Q&A, I was listening to before I came on, a lot of coaches was talking about how tired they was, how beat up they were, or, just trying to find more time, spend more time with the family. And right away, it reminded me of what I was going through and so many other people who are teachers or educators or parents or leaders or supervisors. The thing came to my mind, okay, how do we contribute goodness into the world without sacrificing our own self-care? How do we include ourselves in the world we give into? Where are all these elements of wellness that we need to be our best selves? And we are able to incorporate those elements in our lives. I think we can make the world better. I think we can be better angels to the world once we are better angels to ourselves. And it was a hard conversation for people to talk about or to open up about. And so that's why I also titled Let Me Be Real With You. It's an opportunity to connect, to unshell, to be vulnerable and speak our truth about what we're going through so we can live a better life of service.
That makes sense. And I mean, what I really enjoy about your book is you lay out kind of these areas of wellness, right? I want to say, is it about 8 of them, if I can remember? Yes, 8 of them. And I would like to know, because I read a lot of books for work, then also for pleasure when I get the chance. which area of wellness is there one that sticks out to you? Because I can think of three that, always is kind of a big deal to me, especially, coming from like a minority background, financial wellness. You talk about, I want to say, is it mental wellness? Intellectual wellness and spiritual wellness, along with a myriad of others. But is there any that kind of stick out to you more, or they're kind of all equal, as far as the whole person is concerned?
I mean, I think we all may do better some elements than the others, but for me, I kind of thought about what was the bigger stressors in my life, and I think number one, growing up, is always the lack of financial wellness. Like I worked my butt off and worked at a lot of jobs, and had great jobs where I got paid well, and I'm like, why I still don't have any money, And my uncle told me when I was
A lot
young.
of people can feel that one too. Sometimes,
When I was young, my uncle said, "Hey, the one lesson that came from him, he said, never mess with anyone else's money." And so I grew up understanding, hey, I can't. If I owe someone money, I got to pay them. I can't mess with anyone else's money. I can't mess up. I can't spend that. And I also heard the music that was like, make that money, make that money. But no one ever taught us or me how to save the money, how to take care of the money, right? How to invest the money. And that caused a lot of stress in my life. And so the chapter about financial wellness is really how to really take care of that money, to live the lifestyle that you want, and not only for yourself, but for your future and for your kids' future. Another one was the lack of physical wellness, right? Like growing up, in the food desert, right? With not having access to a lot of healthy food, not understanding the food chart, right? And not until I started rowing, not sure how to take care of my body, what the right food to put into my body. I'm too busy to work out. I can't work out. The book really teaches us how to, when your life is chaotic, how do we add working out to our chaotic life? How do we make that a part of our chaos, right? Because that really helps us to be the human that we want to be. And I think one of the other things that I think, which has been really challenging sometimes for, men, or especially Black men, is the lack of the mental wellness, right? Like, hey, I've, I feel like I'm so stressed out at work, or I feel like I'm drowning in my marriage, or I'm drowning in my relationships. I'm drowning in everything I do. And usually the only way we know that people are drowning is when they drown. And we're teaching people how to have these conversations, how to crowd. If I can go back and tell the younger version of myself anything, it would be, you do not have to fight alone. And it's teaching people that the bravest thing that you can ever do is ask for help. So those are some of the elements of wellness that we're talking about in our book. And as I talked about earlier, the idea, the environmental wellness, this idea of being around water and grass, right? And so these elements are stress killers for us if we incorporate them in our lives.
No, I think you make a great point. And like I said, a lot of times people may not have an understanding of this until later. They've done some living, right? I grew up in Texas, San Antonio, and Houston, and not really a lot of nature. Sometimes we go to Galveston. Anyone that knows Galveston, it's not, it's not like the beaches in California, but it was far away, but it wasn't around nature a lot until like I moved around the country. I lived in LA and started hiking. And then out here in the Pacific Northwest, like once again, I think for a lot of people here, my few years I've lived here, I've noticed how much people really enjoy nature and what it does to the spirit. My son is growing up in more nature than I did, and he tells me something. He's like, "Oh, Dad, I love the rain." I'm like, "Oh, okay," like because it's all he knows. He moved here as a 1-year-old, so it's a fascinating thing. How do you think young people are kind of receiving your message when it comes to, kind of this holistic response to take care of self? As you said, that spiritual wellness, financial wellness, even the food we put in our body, things like that, which a lot of folks, there's a lot of information out there now that it wasn't there years ago about taking care of ourselves, giving yourself the right fuel to be able to row, to do other things, be 100% of yourself.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I'm in maybe 60 schools a year. And I think it's really all about how you tell the story and the struggles you have with it. And I think that they become more open to it. That's what I have seen. Don't really walk into a school and say, hey, you need nature, or, eat this right. But really, again, let me be real with you. Every single time that I'm stressed or I got my heart broke, I was eating donuts, or I was drinking soda. And because of that, I had many, many issues. I ended up in the hospital a couple of times, right? And I wanted to take on the intellectual wellness and learn about my body, but learn also about what are the right things to put in my body so I can be healthy for myself and others, so I can be a better athlete, right? And so it's really about how we tell the story, and I think that they become more open to it. And thinking about what they need, like social wellness is so important. There's so many kids that feel lonely, that feel like in the midst of the crowd that no one hears them, right? That, I only have one friend, or, no one hears me. I don't feel heard, and they turn to different things. They start smoking, they start drinking. And so the idea of social wellness, being a part of a team, finding a peer group, the debate group, whatever it may be, like that social wellness helps you to find those who may have the same challenges as you, and you begin to walk this road together. Like I said, no one wants to fight by themselves. They need help. And so it's really how we tell the story. And now more and more, young people are really accepting that. And I would say this, James, what I love about rowing is an introduction, not to sports, but it's an introduction to environmental wellness, to physical wellness, to social wellness, to mental wellness, to intellectual wellness, the college opportunities that come with it. That's what I love so much about this sport.
Yes, no, definitely. The way you described it, and I read about it quickly. What do you recommend to people? I'm sure here in this part of the country, people can, it's not hard to find. They'll just see anyone. All they got to do is just turn to the left or right and say, hey, where can I go rowing? And be like, oh, you go here. You go here. We got the Willamette River here. That's kind of our big river. What do you recommend for people that might be in certain parts of the country or in a situation like you? Because, obviously there was a blessing of you having a mentorship. If someone lets you know, hey, about 6 miles from here, this is something that can possibly change your life. Maybe not in those words, but how can people from certain parts of, cities or not really aware of that kind of nature, what do you recommend for people to try and find opportunities like that?
Yeah, there's a section in the book where I kind of talked about that this nonprofit called Family Focus, and their job was to make the environment better. One of the things and we had teachers to research that, right? Hey, here's the organizations in your community. I'm sure in every city, they want to focus on environment, right? And usually those groups, those nonprofits, right, will go and help you plant like beautiful flowers in your community, or they will do these trips outside of your community to see these amazing things, And one of the things I talked about was that we didn't have the water, we didn't have the grass, but instead of going to the movies, we were like, hey, can we just take the train to the Garfield Conservatory? Can we just do that today? As a family, can we just tell the school and write the school that, hey, instead of the theaters are nice, but can we go somewhere where we can experience kayaking, right? And so I think that there may not be right there next to us, but there's somewhere in our city. And if we can put in the little work, right? Like the money that came and said, who wants this? Like if you want it and you want to experience this wellness that I'm talking about that really enhances your life and make it so much better, you have to kind of go get it. But you also have to kind of maybe do a little bit of Googling and find the organizations that supports that. But they're out there.
That's very true. Yeah, and I remember that from the book too. So I'm glad you helped plug that. There is stuff. You just got to search. It's like a good old-fashioned Google search. Until Chat GPT takes over, then it's just do a Chat GPT search. I'm sure that's most kids are doing now. And I just have kind of one last question before we plug your book again. Is there anything in particular? Let's say someone's watching now, they're stuck, they're trying to figure out ways to kind of improve themselves. Is there like a quick mantra or like one thing someone can start doing today, right, this week? As you said, small steps, the way your mentor talked about learning how to swim, right? You don't make it like a big test, but like something simple someone can start working on today if they're having an issue with something or they're trying to improve something in their life.
Yeah, I tell you what, again, I did this as a young boy who became very hungry and just really wanted a better life. I believe that number one, you can win at home, that you can go for a walk every single day, right? You can do your push-ups at home. You can go on YouTube and type in, hey, best workouts for someone who's at home in their front room, and it will pop up. You can research best motivational speakers. Eric Thomas will pop up, Les Brown. Give yourself a half hour of that every day to feed your soul. The local library, when you walk into the library, like the wisdom of the world is free. Spend a couple hours just reading something that relates to you, relates to your life. It can be self-help category. It can be Black literature, right? It can be nutrition. There at the library, the wisdom of the world is free, right? And I think one of the important things I talked about once you begin to work on yourself is that vocational wellness, right? Being able to go to a local place and volunteer, or when you're volunteering, you're connecting with people who also care, and that becomes your social network. But they also want to help you if you're looking for a job, if you need someone. When you volunteer, you're aligning yourself with the right people who want to give, and then they will also support you. And so those are some of the things you can do to win at home.
That's great. That's a lot of great advice. Yeah, and even that one thing you said, even just going outside and walking, just baby steps. You don't have to run a marathon yet, and that just goes like, that's also figurative, but not literal. Arshay, before I let you go, just wanted to say, because you got your book coming out on the 14th, right? And is there any special place that you want to plug that people can go check this out or order? I know we have a scan here for folks, but any where can folks find information about you, your life story, and also your big book that's coming out? Let me be real with you.
Yes, you can go on Instagram. You can definitely go to arshaycooper.com. You can buy your book from your local independent bookstore to support your community, or you can go right on barnesandnobles.com or Amazon, and you'll find the book there. But I'm on all social media, and you can connect with me there.
Great. And of course, we just had the QR up there, letting folks know to order it on Amazon. That's always a great place. And look, if you can't read it and sit down and read it, folks, look, this is a shameless plug. You can listen to the audiobook, and I lend my voice. Especially if you live in LA, places you got to drive a lot, you can go ahead and order that as well. So I'm going to be plugging that for sure, because yes. Definitely. Well, Arshay, like I said, it's a real pleasure to speak with you today, and wishing the best for this book. I think it's a really helpful book and really eye-opening, especially all the stuff you've done and what rowing has done for you. And I think a lot of people could really make some good use out of this for, personal self-development and motivational growth.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Can't wait to hear the audiobook.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it, man. All right, well, you have a good one, all right?
All right, you too. Appreciate it.
Thanks.